The wine glass shattered in my hand. Not literally, I wish it had. At least then someone might have noticed the blood. Instead, I sat frozen at that polished table, smile carved into my face like marble, while my husband announced to 60 guests that I was broken. Future heirs. Kalen laughed, swirling his Cabernet like he was performing. Well, unless miracles happen, there won't be any from us. He paused for effect. That smirk I used to find charming now twisted into something cruel. My wife can't have children. The chandelier overhead seemed to brighten. Or maybe that was just the heat of every eye in the room turning toward me. I heard his mother's sharp intake of breath. Saw his sister's hand fly to her mouth. The silence pressed down like a weight. I should have thrown the wine in his face. Should have screamed. Should have walked out and never looked back. Instead, I lifted my glass higher. To miracles, then. My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. The guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to laugh or look away. Someone coughed. The pianist in the corner fumbled a note. Kalen just grinned wider, like he'd won something. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. That night, sitting in our bedroom while Kalen snored in the guest room, couldn't even be bothered to share a bed anymore, I stared at my reflection. Gold gown. Perfect hair. Dead eyes. 3 years. 3 years of needles and hope and prayers whispered into bathroom tiles. 3 years of him pulling away inch by inch until I was standing alone in a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. The magazines loved us. Power couple. Success story. What they didn't photograph were the negative pregnancy tests I hid in the trash. The perfume on his collar that wasn't mine. The way he said some people just aren't meant to be parents, like I was defective. I'd built my event design business from nothing, worked 80-hour weeks, earned every client, turned my name into something people whispered in New York and Milan. While Kalen played Prince in his family's crumbling wine empire, I was the one actually making money. But none of that mattered tonight. Tonight, he'd taken my deepest pain and served it up for entertainment between the duck course and dessert. I opened my laptop, started a folder, named it Truth. Because here's what Kalen didn't know, what his arrogance kept him blind to. I wasn't just a wife. I was a designer, a builder, someone who understood that the most beautiful structures start with a solid foundation. And his empire?
It was built on sand.
Over the next hour, I began pulling threads. Financial statements I'd seen left carelessly on his desk. Conversations I'd overheard about creative accounting. That offshore account his father thought nobody knew about. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw what happened tonight. You deserve better. I deleted it without responding. Pity wasn't what I needed. What I needed was justice. Not the screaming kind. That's messy, forgettable. No, I needed the kind that comes wrapped in elegance. The kind that smiles while it burns everything down. I thought about that envelope I'd seen in Kalen's study last week. The one marked confidential, Trent Exports. The way he'd shoved it in a drawer when I walked in. 6 months. That's what I gave myself. 6 months to build something Kalen's charm couldn't talk his way out of. Because if he wanted to call me Barren, fine. But he was about to learn what I could actually give birth to. And it wasn't going to be gentle. What would you do if someone you loved humiliated you in front of everyone? Would you leave immediately? Or would you plan something they'd never see coming? The first time I saw Kalen Trent, he was laughing at someone else's joke and making it sound like his own. That should have been my warning. Instead, I thought it was charming. The charity gala sparkled around us, crystal and champagne, and people who measured their worth in zeros. I was 26, wearing a dress I'd sewn myself because designers like me couldn't afford designer prices yet. My event planning business was barely breathing, held together by coffee and stubbornness. He walked up to my display booth. You did the florals for this? And the lighting? And the seating arrangements? I didn't smile. Wasn't trying to impress him. That's probably why he stayed. Impressive. He picked up my business card, studied it like it mattered. Most people here just throw money at problems. You actually create solutions. I should have known better. Should have seen that he was collecting me like he collected rare wines, something interesting to show off at parties. But I was tired. Tired of working 70-hour weeks. Tired of eating ramen while designing million-dollar events. And when Kalen Trent looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the room, I let myself believe it. 3 months later, he proposed on a yacht. 6 months after that, we were married in a ceremony that made magazines. Everyone said we were perfect together. They were wrong. The cracks started small. He'd promised to meet me for dinner, then cancel for business. Said he loved my independence, then complained I worked too much. Wanted me at his family events, but introduced me as Leora. She does events and things. Like I was a hobby, a side project. His mother never warmed to me. The Trent family has standards, she'd say, smiling with her mouth but not her eyes. Translation: you're not good enough.
Still, I tried.
God, how I tried. Learned which fork to use at formal dinners. Memorized the names of wines I couldn't pronounce. Stood beside Kalen at fundraisers while he charmed investors and forgot I existed. The worst part? I started forgetting I existed too. One night, 2 years into our marriage, I brought up kids. We were in bed, his back to me, scrolling his phone. I've been thinking, I said carefully. Maybe we should start trying. He didn't look up.
Sure.
Someday. I mean now. I'm almost 30, and… Leora. He turned, irritated. Can we not do this tonight? I have an early meeting. But I pushed. Because something inside me knew that if we didn't start building something real, we'd have nothing left. Fine.
He tossed his phone aside.
You want kids? Let's try. It wasn't romantic. Wasn't even kind.
But I took it as a yes.
That's when the nightmare really began. Month after month of negative tests. Doctors with gentle voices and complicated words. Hormone treatments that made me feel like a stranger in my own body. And Kalen, growing more distant with every failed attempt. He stopped coming to appointments.
Stopped asking how I felt.
Started working late more often, coming home smelling like someone else's perfume. I found the first receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner for 2 at a restaurant we'd never been to. When I asked, he laughed it off. Client dinner. You're being paranoid. Maybe I was. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to face the truth. That my husband was already building a future. Just not with me. The final appointment came on a Tuesday. Dr. Chin sat across from us. Well, across from me. Kalen had forgotten to show up. There's no medical reason you can't conceive, she said gently. Sometimes it just takes time. And stress doesn't help. I drove home alone, hands shaking on the wheel. Walked into our house, his family's house, really, and found Kalen on the couch, tie loosened, laughing at something on TV. How'd it go? He didn't look up. She said there's nothing wrong with me. Great. Still watching the screen. Kalen. My voice cracked. Can you at least pretend to care? He finally looked at me. Really looked. And what I saw in his eyes wasn't love or concern or even basic human decency. It was annoyance. What do you want me to say, Leora? That I'm thrilled we're spending thousands on treatments that aren't working? That I love watching you fall apart over something that might never happen? The room tilted. Something that might never. Maybe, he said, standing up, some people just aren't meant to be parents. He left the room. Left me standing there with those words carved into my chest. That night, alone in our bed, I finally let myself cry. Gut-wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. Because I'd lost more than the dream of children. I'd lost myself trying to love someone who never loved me back. But I didn't know yet, didn't understand, that rock bottom has a trapdoor. And I was about to fall through it. Have you ever ignored warning signs in a relationship because you wanted so badly for it to work? How long is too long to stay? The perfume was wrong. Not mine. I wore something light, citrus-based, the kind that whispered instead of announced. This was heavy, floral, the kind of scent that clung to shirt collars and bedsheets and lies. I found it on a Tuesday. Kalen had come home past midnight again, claimed exhaustion, and collapsed into the guest bedroom. He'd been sleeping there for weeks. Better rest, he'd said. Big projects coming up. I stood in our laundry room, holding his dress shirt up to the light. The scent hit me like a slap. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. Maybe I'd known for months, and just hadn't wanted to see it. Maybe betrayal becomes easier to swallow when you've been choking on it slowly. I put the shirt in the wash. Deleted the evidence like I was deleting my dignity. The fertility treatments continued. Needles every morning. Hormones that made my body feel like a war zone. I'd sit in the clinic waiting room, surrounded by couples holding hands, and wonder where my husband was. Probably with her. I didn't know her name yet. Didn't know her face. But I knew she existed in the gaps. The missed calls, the secretive texts, the way Kaylin's eyes slid past me at dinner parties like I was furniture. Dr. Chun suggested counseling. Infertility puts stress on marriages. Talking might help. I didn't tell her that my husband hadn't touched me in 4 months. That we existed in the same house like ghosts haunting different rooms. Instead, I threw myself into work. My design business had grown despite my grief, or maybe because of it. When you're drowning, you grab whatever floats. My clients became my lifeline. Events in Manhattan, consultations in Miami, a vineyard redesign in Napa that earned me industry recognition. Kaylin barely noticed. Or maybe he was relieved. Easier to cheat when your wife's not paying attention. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I'd come home early, exhausted from a site visit. Needed to grab my laptop for a video call. I walked past Kaylin's office and heard his voice, low, intimate, the way he used to talk to me. I stopped. Pressed my ear to the door. No, she doesn't suspect anything. His laugh, that same charming laugh that had hooked me years ago. She's too busy playing designer.
Pause. Of course I'm serious about you.
This marriage it's complicated, but not for much longer. My heart hammered against my ribs. I should have burst through the door. Should have screamed. Should have demanded truth. But I just stood there, recording every word in my memory. You're my real future, he said softly. She's just what I'm stuck with for now. I walked away, grabbed my laptop, made my video call with a smile plastered on my face while my world collapsed behind my eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in our empty bed, my empty bed, and stared at the ceiling. Counted the cracks in the plaster like counting the cracks in my marriage. 42. 42 visible breaks in something that was supposed to be solid. I got up, walked to Kaylin's office. The door was unlocked. He'd gotten careless, arrogant. I sat at his desk and opened his laptop. No password.
God, he really thought I was stupid.
The emails loaded. My breath caught. Elira Monroe, our interior designer. The woman who'd helped me pick out curtains for our living room, who'd sat at our dinner table, who'd smiled at me like we were friends. The messages went back 8 months. Dinners. Hotels. Promises whispered in digital ink. One message from 3 weeks ago. Can't wait until you're finally free. We'll build something better than what you have with her. I closed the laptop. Walked back to bed. Lay there until dawn painted the windows gray. Something shifted inside me that night. Something cold and sharp and unbreakable. Because here's what Kaylin didn't understand. I wasn't fragile. I'd built a business from scratch while he coasted on his family's name. I'd survived doctors' offices and negative tests and the slow death of hope. I could survive this too. Better than survive. I could weaponize it. The next morning, I went to breakfast like nothing had changed. Poured Kaylin's coffee. Asked about his day. Smiled when he lied. Busy week, he said, not meeting my eyes. Lots of investor meetings. Of course. I buttered my toast. You work so hard. He looked up then, surprised. Maybe even suspicious. But I just kept smiling, kept playing the role of the devoted wife. Because I'd learned something crucial in those dark hours. Revenge doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wear red dresses and throw plates. It wears patience. It gathers evidence. It waits for the perfect moment to strike. And my moment was coming. I just had to build it carefully, brick by brick, lie by lie, until Kaylin's whole world rested on a foundation I could collapse with one whisper. Is everything okay? He asked, studying my face. Everything's perfect, I said. And for the first time in months, I meant it. Because nothing feels better than knowing you're 3 steps ahead of someone who thinks you're stupid. When you discover betrayal, is it better to confront immediately or wait and gather proof? What would you do? His father's birthday party was the kind of event that made normal people feel poor just looking at the invitation. Gold embossed. Hand-delivered. Black tie required, printed in script so elegant it looked like it was judging you. I spent 3 hours getting ready. Gold gown that I designed myself. Silk that caught light like liquid sunshine. Hair swept up. Makeup perfect. I looked like success. Felt like a bomb waiting to detonate. Kaylin barely glanced at me when I came downstairs. Ready. That was it. No, you look beautiful. No, I'm lucky to have you. Just ready like I was a business associate he was picking up. The Trent estate glowed against the night sky. Lights strung through ancient oak trees. Valets parking cars that cost more than houses. Inside, crystal chandeliers threw diamonds across marble floors. 200 guests. Politicians. Industry titans. People whose names appeared in Forbes. And me. The wife who wasn't good enough, playing the part one more time. Kaylin's mother greeted us at the entrance. Leora. Air kiss, no warmth. That's an interesting dress. Translation. Too flashy, too attention-seeking, too much. I smiled. Thank you, Margaret. You look lovely, too. Kaylin was already gone, absorbed into a cluster of men with cigars and egos. I floated through the crowd alone, champagne in hand, watching my husband work the room like he owned it. Maybe he thought he did. Dinner was announced. We filed into the dining room, a space designed to intimidate. Long table set with china so delicate it looked like breath could shatter it. Flowers spilling from centerpieces. Candles flickering like judgment. I ended up seated between Kaylin's sister and some investor I'd never met. Kaylin was at the far end, laughing too loud, drinking too much, performing. The meal crawled by. Course after course of food I couldn't taste. Conversations that slid past me like water. I played my part, smiled when expected, laughed at appropriate moments, stayed invisible. Until dessert. That's when everything shattered. Someone I don't even remember, who raised a glass. To the future. To the next generation of Trents carrying on this legacy. Polite applause. A few knowing smiles. Margaret beaming at her son. And Kaylin, drunk on wine and his own importance, decided to be honest for once in his life. Future heirs. He stood, swaying slightly, glass raised high. The room quieted. Well, unless miracles happen, there won't be any from us. My stomach dropped. Around me, people shifted uncomfortably. But Kaylin wasn't done. He looked right at me. His eyes weren't cruel. That would have been easier. They were just empty. Like I didn't exist enough to hate. My wife can't have children. 7 words. 34 letters. The complete destruction of whatever dignity I had left. The silence was deafening. Someone gasped. Might have been his mother. His sister's fork clattered against her plate. The investor beside me suddenly found his wine fascinating. I felt every eye in the room land on me. Pity. Embarrassment. Schadenfreude from the ones who'd never liked me anyway. My hands were shaking under the table. My face burned. My throat closed around words I couldn't form. Kaylin just smiled. Drank his wine. Sat back down like he'd commented on the weather. I could have cried. Could have run. Could have screamed that he was the one who'd stopped trying, stopped caring, stopped being a husband. But I didn't. I lifted my glass. Kept my voice steady even though my heart was breaking in real time. To miracles, then. The toast hung in the air. A few people drank. Most didn't. The pianist started playing again, too loud, trying to drown the awkwardness. Conversation limped back to life. But I felt the weight of those stares, those whispers. Poor thing. How embarrassing. Did you know? I sat through the rest of dinner. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. Just smiled my practice smile while something inside me died. And something else, something cold and sharp, was born. When the party finally ended, I rode home in silence. Kalen was on his phone, texting someone. Probably her. Probably laughing about what he'd done. At home, he went straight to the guest bedroom. Didn't apologize. Didn't acknowledge what had happened. Just closed the door like none of it mattered. I stood in our bedroom, my bedroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. Gold dress. Perfect hair. Dead eyes. 3 years of trying. 3 years of hope and needles and prayers. And he'd just announced my failure to 200 people like it was a punchline. I thought about leaving. Packing a bag. Walking out and never coming back. But then I thought about something else. About the emails on his laptop. The offshore accounts I'd glimpsed in his father's study. The forged signatures. The corruption hiding behind crystal chandeliers and expensive wine. Leaving would be easy. Quick. Clean. But it wouldn't hurt him. And God help me, I wanted him to hurt. Not with fists or screaming. Not even with lawyers and divorce papers. I wanted him to feel what I felt tonight. Exposed, humiliated, powerless. I wanted justice served cold on fine china. So I didn't pack. Didn't cry. Didn't do anything except open my laptop and create a new folder. At the top, I typed, "The Trent Empire, a complete autopsy." Then I started digging. Because if Kalen wanted to destroy me publicly, fine. But he'd just made a critical mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how much I was willing to lose. And how much I could make him lose in return. Have you ever had someone humiliate you publicly? Did you fight back immediately, or plan your revenge carefully? I didn't leave him the next morning, or the next week, or even the next month. Everyone expected me to. Hell, I expected me to. But revenge doesn't pack suitcases. It builds empires. While Kalen slept in the guest room and spent his days with Elira pretending I didn't exist, I worked. Not just on my design business, though that exploded. 3 major contracts in 2 months. A feature in Architectural Digest. An invitation to redesign a hotel chain's flagship properties. I was building something he couldn't touch. Couldn't claim. Couldn't take credit for. My name. My reputation. My power. But that was just the foundation. The real work happened at night, after Kalen came home reeking of her perfume, after he'd grunt some excuse and disappear into his office. That's when I became a detective. Started with his laptop. Passwords are easy when your husband thinks you're stupid. His emails read like a crime thriller. Messages to distributors about creative invoicing. Conversations with his father about restructuring assets to avoid taxes. A whole thread about falsifying export documents to bypass regulations. The Trent wine empire wasn't just morally bankrupt. It was actually bankrupt. They'd been running on credit and lies for 3 years. The vineyard hadn't turned a profit since 2020. Everything, the estate, the cars, the parties, was financed by offshore accounts stuffed with money that should have been taxed. Kalen's father, that pompous man who'd called me not quite Trent material, was a fraud. And Kalen was following perfectly in his footsteps. I started collecting everything. Screenshots. Downloaded emails. Scanned documents I found accidentally left in his office. Each piece of evidence went into encrypted folders with backups on 3 different drives. My design business became the perfect cover. Working late meant I was actually meeting with a forensic accountant I'd hired through a shell company. Client dinner meant I was sitting with a lawyer who specialized in white-collar crime, learning exactly how deep this corruption went. Kalen noticed nothing. Too busy building his real future with Elira. I saw them together once. Pure accident. I'd stopped for coffee near his office, and there they were, walking out of a restaurant. His hand on her back. Her laughing at something he said. The way he looked at her was almost worse than the affair itself. Because he'd never looked at me like that. Not even in the beginning. She was young. 28, maybe. Blonde where I was dark. Soft where I'd become sharp. Everything he wanted instead of what he'd gotten stuck with. I could have confronted them. Made a scene on that sidewalk. Screamed and cried and given everyone a show. Instead, I took a photo. Added it to my growing collection. Evidence isn't emotional. That's what makes it powerful. 3 months in, I found the smoking gun. Buried in a folder labeled 2019 Exports, a series of shipping manifests for wine supposedly sent to Italy. Except the signature approving them wasn't his father's. The handwriting was close. Nearly perfect. But I'd seen enough of both men's signatures to spot the difference. Kalen had forged documents to move money through fake international sales. Not once. Not twice. At least 15 times over 2 years. That's federal fraud. Prison-level fraud. I sat in his office, holding proof that could destroy him, and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just cold, calculated clarity. This was it. This was how I'd take everything. But timing mattered. I couldn't just go to the police. Kalen's family had friends in high places. Couldn't just divorce him and take half. Prenups are vicious when you marry wealth. No, I needed something bigger. Something public. Something that would strip away every protection he'd ever had. The opportunity came in an email. Kalen, planning a massive investor dinner at the Vineyard Estate. A new era for Trent Wines, the invitation read. He was trying to secure funding to expand, probably to cover the debts I knew about, and he was pretending didn't exist. Every major player in the wine industry would be there. Journalists. Politicians. The kind of audience that could make or break a reputation overnight.
Perfect.
I RSVP'd yes before he could uninvite me. When he saw my name on the list, he called. "You don't have to come," he said, voice tight. "I know things have been difficult." Difficult. That's what he called humiliating me, cheating on me, building a life without me. "I want to support you." I lied smoothly. "It's important." Silence. Then, "Fine. But don't embarrass me." The irony almost made me laugh. Don't embarrass him. As if he hadn't already embarrassed us both beyond repair. I spent the next 2 months perfecting my plan. Every detail mattered. The envelope, cream-colored, expensive, the kind that screamed importance. The USB drive, small, unassuming, loaded with evidence that would end him. The timing, dessert, when everyone was comfortable, full of wine and food and false security. And the delivery system. God, I was proud of that. Automated emails set to trigger the moment he opened the envelope. Every investor, every journalist, every person in that room would receive the same information simultaneously. No time for damage control. No way to spin the narrative. Just raw, undeniable truth flooding every inbox at once. I designed a sapphire gown for the occasion. Not gold this time. That was the woman who'd been humiliated. Sapphire was the woman who'd learned to bite back. The night before the dinner, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed reviewing every step, every detail, every possible way this could go wrong. But it wouldn't. I'd been too careful. Too thorough. Kalen had built his empire on lies and arrogance. Tomorrow night, I was going to burn it down with nothing but truth. And when I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of fire. Beautiful, cleansing fire. Would you expose someone's crimes even if it meant destroying their entire life? Where's the line between justice and revenge? The Trent wine empire was rotting from the inside out. I discovered this on a Tuesday, buried in spreadsheets that Kalen's father had hidden in a safe behind a painting, a safe I'd watched him open dozens of times without realizing I was memorizing the combination. The numbers told a story uglier than any affair. Loans taken against properties already mortgaged. Investors paid with money from newer investors, a Ponzi scheme dressed in expensive suits. Wine shipments that existed only on paper, payments that vanished into accounts in the Cayman Islands. 3 generations of Trent legacy built on theft and lies. And Kalen knew. Every forged signature, every false export document, every bribe paid to keep inspectors looking the other way, his fingerprints were all over it. I photographed everything. My hands steady even as my heart raced. This wasn't just evidence of fraud anymore. This was ammunition. My forensic accountant, a woman named Diana who asked no questions and charged premium rates for her silence, laid it out simply. If this goes public, the whole family goes down. We're talking federal charges. Prison time. Complete financial collapse. Good, I said. She looked at me over her glasses. You're sure? Once you light this match, there's no putting it out. I thought about that dinner. About Kalen's smirk as he announced my failure to 200 people. About 3 years of needles and hope and humiliation. I'm sure. The next piece fell into place when I learned about the investor dinner. Kalen was desperate. I could see it in the way he paced his office, in the late-night calls where his voice climbed higher with each excuse. The empire was crumbling and he needed fresh money to hold it together. He'd invited everyone who mattered. CEOs. Venture capitalists. Wine industry giants from California to France. Even brought in journalists from trade publications to witness his triumph. And Elira. Of course Elira would be there, probably picking out curtains for their future together. The invitation arrived on my desk 2 months before the event. Heavy cardstock. Gold foil. Mr. and Mrs. Kalen Trent request the honor of your presence. Mrs. Trent. I almost laughed. He couldn't even be bothered to remove me from the guest list himself. I RSVP'd immediately. Yes, I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world. When Kalen saw my response, he cornered me in the kitchen. You don't need to come. I know you're busy with your projects. Projects. Like my business was a hobby. Like I wasn't currently out earning his entire family. I want to support my husband, I said sweetly. Isn't that what wives do? His jaw tightened. He wanted to tell me to stay home but couldn't without looking suspicious. Fine. Just behave yourself. Behave. As if I was the one who'd broken every vow we'd ever made. I spent the next 8 weeks building my masterpiece. The USB drive contained everything: financial records, forged documents, audio recordings I'd made of Kalen's phone calls. Diana had organized it beautifully, color-coded and cross-referenced so even a child could follow the corruption. The letter I wrote myself. Simple. Direct. No emotion. Just facts laid out like a prosecution's opening statement. But the real genius was the delivery system. I'd hired a tech consultant, paid in cash, met in coffee shops, left no digital trail, to create an automated program. The moment Kalen opened that envelope, every phone in the room would receive an anonymous email with the evidence attached. No warning. No chance to spin the story. Just truth flooding in while he stood there, exposed. I tested it 17 times. Checked every line of code. Made sure the email accounts were untraceable, routed through servers in countries that didn't cooperate with U.S. investigations. Perfect. 3 days before the dinner, I went dress shopping. Found a sapphire gown that fit like armor. Elegant but sharp, beautiful but dangerous. The kind of dress that said I'm not here to play nice anymore. Kalen barely noticed me trying it on. He was too busy with Elira, planning the event, pretending his empire wasn't built on sand. I watched them together once more. Saw the way she touched his arm, the way he leaned into her like she was home. Part of me felt sorry for her. She had no idea what she was signing up for. That in 72 hours, the man she loved would be a criminal headline. But mostly I felt nothing. Revenge doesn't leave room for pity. The night before the dinner, I couldn't eat. Sat at the kitchen counter, the cream envelope in front of me. The USB drive weighing nothing but feeling like a loaded gun. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that vineyard estate one last time. Smile at people who'd watched me be humiliated. Sit at a table with the man who'd destroyed me. And then I'd destroy him back. Kalen came home late, smelling like wine and her perfume. Didn't even look at me as he headed upstairs. Big day tomorrow. I called after him. He paused. Turned. For just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Suspicion, maybe. Or fear. Yeah, he said. It is. I smiled. I hope it's everything you've dreamed of. He studied my face, trying to read what I wasn't saying. But I'd learned to hide myself too well. Thanks, he finally said, and disappeared upstairs. I sat there alone, envelope in hand, and thought about the moment tomorrow when his world would end. Would he cry? Beg? Blame me? Didn't matter. By the time dessert was served, Kalen Trent would understand exactly what he'd lost. Not a wife. Not a marriage. His entire future. If you had evidence to destroy someone who hurt you, would you use it? Or is there a point where revenge goes too far? The invitation sat on my dresser like a dare. An evening of excellence, the future of Trent Wines. Future. The word almost made me laugh. By tomorrow night, the only future the Trents would have was measured in court dates and prison sentences. I woke up early that morning.
Couldn't sleep anyway.
Stood in the shower letting scalding water wash over me, trying to feel something other than cold determination. 3 years. 3 years of shrinking myself to fit into Kalen's world. 3 years of needles and disappointment and watching my husband fall in love with someone else. Tonight it ended. I laid out everything carefully. The sapphire gown on the bed. The envelope, cream-colored and perfect, sitting on my vanity. Inside, a letter and a USB drive that would obliterate the Trent family legacy. My phone buzzed. Diana, my forensic accountant. Everything set. Once he opens it, the emails trigger automatically. No way to stop it. I typed back. Perfect. Another message, this one from my lawyer. Are you absolutely sure about this? There's still time to pursue a quieter divorce. Quieter. Everyone wanted me to be quieter. Smaller. More acceptable. I'm sure, I replied. The day crawled by. I worked on client proposals, returned emails, pretended everything was normal. Kalen came home around 3, already dressed in his tuxedo, checking his reflection obsessively. You're still coming? He asked, not meeting my eyes. Of course. I RSVP'd weeks ago. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, Leora, maybe it's better if you don't. This is a business event and I'm your wife. I smiled. People expect to see us together. Don't you want to look like a devoted couple? The irony wasn't lost on him. His jaw tightened, but he nodded.
Fine.
Just don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass him. Those words again. I wouldn't dream of it, I said softly. He left early to oversee final preparations. I took my time getting ready, hair swept into an elegant twist, makeup subtle but flawless, the sapphire gown fitting like it was made for war. Which, in a way, it was. I slipped the envelope into my clutch. So small. So unassuming. The weight of someone's entire downfall fitting in the palm of my hand. The drive to the vineyard felt surreal. Sunset painted the sky pink and gold, like the world didn't know what was about to happen. Or maybe it did, and this was just nature's way of commemorating the occasion. The Trent estate glowed. Lights strung through grapevines, white tents billowing in evening breeze, cars lining the driveway like a luxury showroom. Valets in crisp uniforms. Jazz music drifting through warm air. Everyone who mattered was here. And they were about to witness something they'd never forget. I stepped out of my car. A valet took my keys. I walked toward the entrance, clutch in hand, envelope inside, destruction waiting patiently. The main hall had been transformed. Crystal everywhere. Flowers spilling from centerpieces. A string quartet playing something classical and pretentious. Guests in tuxedos and gowns, champagne flutes catching light. And there, in the center of it all, stood Kalen. Laughing. Shaking hands. Playing the role of successful heir to perfection. Beside him, not even trying to hide it anymore, was Elira. She wore red, looked happy, had no idea her future was about to evaporate. I walked in slowly. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. That's his wife. I thought they were separated. This is awkward. Kalen's smile froze when he saw me. Our eyes met across the room. For just a second, I saw panic flash across his face. Good. Let him worry. I crossed to him, every step measured. Hello, darling, I said warmly. Beautiful event. He recovered quickly. Leora. Thank you for coming. Elira's smile was strained. Mrs. Trent. Lovely to see you. Is it? I met her eyes. How nice. Tension crackled between us. Kalen looked like he wanted to run. But dinner was announced. We filed into the dining hall, a space that had witnessed countless Trent celebrations. Tonight it would witness their destruction. I was seated at the main table. Of course I was still technically the wife. Kalen sat at the head, Elira conveniently placed 3 seats down, far enough to seem innocent, close enough that their eyes kept meeting. The meal began. Course after course of expensive food I couldn't taste. Conversations flowing around me like water around a stone. I smiled, nodded, played my part, and waited. Kaelin gave a speech between the main course and dessert. Talked about legacy, heritage, the bright future of Trent wines. Every word was a lie, and he delivered them beautifully. I watched him perform, watched people lean in, charmed, watched investors nodding, journalists scribbling notes. He'd always been good at this, making people believe what he wanted them to believe. But lies have expiration dates, and his was about 60 seconds away. Dessert arrived, individual chocolate soufflés with gold leaf. Pretentious even by Trent standards. I reached into my clutch, felt the envelope's smooth surface. This was it. No turning back. Once I put this on the table, everything would change. My hand trembled slightly. Only slightly. Then I remembered that dinner. His words. The silence. The pity in everyone's eyes. My wife can't have children. My hand steadied. I placed the cream envelope on the table beside his wine glass. Gently. Almost lovingly. Kaelin was mid-conversation with an investor. He glanced down, frowned. You left something unfinished, Kaelin, I said quietly. The table quieted. Curious eyes turned toward us. What's this? He asked. Just something I thought you should read before the evening ends. His eyes narrowed. Suspicious now. But ego wouldn't let him refuse, not in front of everyone. He picked up the envelope, tore it open, and in that moment, watching his face change from confusion to horror, I felt absolutely nothing. Just cold, perfect peace. Have you ever planned the perfect revenge? What did it feel like in the moment before everything changed? The envelope opened with a whisper. Kaelin pulled out the letter first. His eyes scanned the first line, then the second. I watched color drain from his face like someone had pulled a plug. Around us, conversation continued. Laughter. The clink of silverware. Nobody noticed yet that the world was ending. His hands shook as he unfolded the paper completely. Read. Read again. His breathing changed shorter, faster. What is this? His voice barely above a whisper. The truth, I said calmly. Keep reading. He did. Every word, every accusation, every piece of evidence laid out in clean, prosecutorial language. When he finished, he looked up at me with something I'd never seen before. Fear. Leora. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again. And again. Around a table, phones started lighting up like Christmas. Buzz. Ding. Vibrate. A symphony of digital notifications. The investor beside Kaelin checked his screen. His face went pale. What the hell? Another guest gasped. Someone dropped their fork. The woman across from me, a journalist, stared at her phone like it had just bitten her. Oh my God, she breathed. The room's energy shifted. Confusion rippled outward like a stone thrown in still water. More phones. More shocked faces. Whispers growing louder. Is this real? The Trent accounts. Federal fraud? Kaelin stood abruptly, chair scraping. Everyone, please, there's been some kind of mistake. Mistake. The investor stood too, phone thrust forward. I just received documents showing you've been running a Ponzi scheme for 3 years. That's not I didn't. Kaelin's smooth charm crumbled. He looked around desperately, found Elira's face. She was staring at her phone, horror written across her features. Kaelin, she said shakily. What did you do? The journalist was already typing. Cameras appeared, guests documenting the meltdown in real time. In 30 seconds, this would be on social media. In 30 minutes, it would be everywhere. Kaelin's father pushed through the crowd. What's happening? Your son, the investor snarled, has been committing fraud. And apparently you knew. The old man went white. That's absurd. There are recordings, bank statements, your signature on false export documents. Another guest held up their phone. It's all here. Everything. Chaos bloomed. People standing, shouting, demanding answers. Servers frozen mid-step. The string quartet stopped playing. A lyre was crying. Kaylin's mother clutched her chest like she might collapse. And I just sat there, watching, serene. Kaylin turned to me, his eyes wild. You did this. Did what? I took a sip of wine. I just gave you something to read. You've destroyed everything. His voice cracked. My family, the business. No, I said softly. You destroyed it. I just showed people the truth. He lunged toward me, but someone grabbed his arm. Security appeared, I don't know from where. Everything was moving fast now, spiraling out of control. Reporters pushed forward. Mr. Trent, is it true you forged documents? Did you know investors were being scammed? How long has this been going on? Kaylin looked like a cornered animal. She's lying. My wife is trying to ruin me because she's bitter. Bitter? I stood slowly, smoothed my gown. Every eye in the room turned to me. Is that what you call telling the truth? The journalist's phone was recording. I knew this moment would be everywhere by morning.
Good. Let it.
You humiliated me at your father's birthday, I said clearly. Told 200 people I was barren. Made my pain into entertainment. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People remembered that night. The gossip. The whispers. But you made one mistake, Kaylin. I stepped closer. You thought silence meant weakness. You thought because I didn't scream, I wasn't paying attention. I reached into my clutch and pulled out one more envelope. Placed it on the table. The USB drive contains every piece of evidence. Bank statements. Forged signatures. Recordings of you and your father discussing bribes. It's all there. I've already sent copies to the FBI, the IRS, and the SEC. His face crumpled. Why? Because you called me Barren. I leaned in close, voice low enough only he could hear. But look what I gave birth to. Justice. I straightened. Looked around at the destruction, the shocked faces, the cameras, the empire collapsing in real time. Then I placed one final note on the table. Handwritten. Simple. You called me Barren, but truth can give birth to justice. I turned and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted. No one tried to stop me. Behind me, Kaylin's voice rose, desperate and breaking. Leora, please. We can fix this. Please. I didn't look back. Outside, the night air was cool. Stars overhead. Music and chaos behind me, growing distant with each step. A valet brought my car. I tipped him generously. None of this was his fault. As I drove away, I could see the estate in my rearview mirror. Lights still glowing. People spilling out. Phones to ears, voices raised. The Trent wine empire, dying under chandeliers and string music. I didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel vindicated or powerful, or any of the things I thought I'd feel. I just felt free. For the first time in 3 years, I could breathe. My phone buzzed. Diana, it's everywhere. News outlets picking it up. FBI already responding to tips. Another message. My lawyer. You did it.
Clean.
Legal. Perfect. I didn't respond to either. Just drove into the night, leaving behind the woman who'd been called Barren. Carrying forward the woman who'd learned that silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it just means you're loading the gun. Would you walk away after delivering justice? Or would you stay to watch the fallout? What does real freedom look like to you? The headlines hit before sunrise. Trent wine empire collapses amid fraud scandal. Federal investigation launched into California vineyard dynasty. From legacy to lies. The fall of the Trent family. I read them from a hotel room in San Francisco. Hadn't gone home. Couldn't stomach being in that house, sleeping in that bed, breathing air that still smelled like 3 years of pain. My phone exploded. Reporters requesting interviews. Old friends suddenly concerned. Kaylin's sister texting, "How could you do this to us?" I blocked them all. Only answered one call, Diana. "It's bigger than we thought," she said. SEC froze all accounts. FBI raided the estate at dawn. Your name's being kept out of it so far, but… I don't care about my name, I said. Is it over? For them? Absolutely. Kalen's facing 15 to 20 years. His father more. The business is done. I should have felt something. Victory, maybe. Satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. The news played on loop. Footage of FBI agents carrying boxes from the Tren estate. Kalen's father being led away in handcuffs. Investors giving angry statements about betrayal and stolen money. And Kalen, looking smaller somehow. Broken. His lawyer beside him, no commenting their way through a mob of cameras. Elira appeared in one shot, crying, saying she had no idea. Maybe that was true. Maybe she really thought she was just dating a successful man. Now she was dating a criminal. My lawyer called. They're going to want to talk to you eventually. As the spouse, you had access. I have nothing to hide, I said. Everything I gave them came from documents they left accessible. I broke no laws. I know. Just be prepared. I spent 3 days in that hotel. Ordered room service. Ignored calls. Watched my old life implode on television. Messages kept coming. Some supportive. You're a hero for exposing them. Some vicious. You've destroyed a family out of spite. Maybe they were both right. On the 4th day, I went home. The house felt like a museum, beautiful and empty and full of things that meant nothing. I packed a single suitcase. Clothes. Laptop. Photos of my parents who died years ago and never got to see me find my spine. Everything else, the designer furniture, the crystal, the art, I left behind. Let the government take it. Let it be auctioned off to pay back victims. None of it was ever really mine anyway. I drove south. No plan. No destination. Just away. Ended up in Charleston. Don't know why. Maybe because it felt like the opposite of California. Older, quieter, less obsessed with appearances. I found a small apartment overlooking the water. Watched boats drift by. Felt my shoulders a knot for the first time in years. My design business didn't skip a beat. Turns out exposing your husband's corruption doesn't hurt your reputation when everyone knew you were the talented one anyway. New clients found me. Better clients. People who appreciated what I built instead of treating it like a hobby. I hired 5 employees within 2 months. Opened a proper office. Started focusing on a specific niche, helping women redesign spaces after divorce. Wineries, actually. Helping them rebrand, rebuild, become something new. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months after that night, I received a letter. Prison stationery. Kalen's handwriting shaky and small. You've ruined me. Are you proud? I stared at it for a long time. Thought about everything that led to this moment. The treatments. The humiliation. The affair. The envelope. I wrote back. Just one line. No. I'm free. Never heard from him again. His father died in prison 4 months later. Heart attack. The estate was auctioned off. Every crystal chandelier. Every bottle of wine. Every piece of the legacy they'd killed themselves to maintain. A women's cooperative bought the vineyard. Renamed it Solace Hills. They hired me to redesign the label. I created something simple, elegant, and at the bottom, in small script, born of truth. Every bottle carried that phrase, a reminder that beauty can grow from ashes. A year after the scandal, I was featured in a design magazine. They asked about my inspiration. I learned, I said, that sometimes you have to burn down the old to build something real. They loved that quote. Put it on the cover. What I didn't tell them was that I still had nightmares. Still woke up sometimes hearing Kalen's voice. My wife can't have children. Still felt the shame burning through me. But then I'd get up, make coffee, look at the business I'd built, the women I'd helped, the life I'd created from nothing. And I'd remember, being called Barren by someone who created nothing but lies wasn't an insult. It was a liberation. Because I did give birth. Not to children. Maybe that'll happen someday, maybe it won't. But I gave birth to myself. To the woman I'd buried trying to please someone unworthy of pleasing. And that woman? She doesn't apologize for seeking justice. She doesn't regret that envelope. She doesn't wonder if revenge went too far. Because it wasn't revenge. Revenge is emotional, messy, cruel for cruelty's sake. What I did was simpler. I told the truth. And if the truth destroyed them, well, maybe they should have built their empire on something stronger than lies. When you've been hurt deeply, how do you move forward? Is justice closure, or is it just the beginning of healing? 2 years after the envelope, I stood in a vineyard I designed from scratch. Not Solace Hills, though I still consulted there. This was mine. A small property in South Carolina, wine country. 20 acres of vines I'd planted with my own hands. The irony of becoming what Kaylin pretended to be wasn't lost on me. Except my operation was real, profitable, built on actual work instead of fraud and family money. I called it Lionheart Vineyards, a play on my name, a reminder that courage looks different than people think. My team was small, 3 women, all rebuilding after divorces that had tried to break them. We worked together, planted together, created something that belonged to us. No husbands, no legacies. Just work and wine and women who'd learned that starting over isn't failure. It's evolution. The mail came while I was checking the vines. My assistant brought it out, mostly invoices and promotional materials. And 1 letter. Prison stationery. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard from Kaylin in 18 months. Inside was a single page. His handwriting neater now, like he'd had time to practice. I heard about your vineyard. Congratulations. I mean that. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did. To you. To my family. To everyone. You were right. About all of it.
I'm sorry.
I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I wanted you to know. You deserved better than me.
You always did.
See. I read it twice. Looked for sarcasm or manipulation. Found only what seemed like genuine regret. Maybe prison had changed him. Maybe he'd actually learned something. Or maybe he was just lonely and wanted me to write back. I folded the letter. Put it in my pocket.
Didn't respond.
Some apologies arrived too late to matter. That evening, I hosted a small gathering at the vineyard. Local businesses. Potential investors. Women from the divorce support group I'd started leading. We drank the first bottles from Lionheart's inaugural vintage. Nothing fancy, a simple red blend. But it was ours. Every grape grown without lies. Every bottle labeled with truth. Someone toasted. To new beginnings. Everyone drank.
Laughed.
The sunset painted everything gold. I thought about that other dinner. Crystal chandeliers. 4 smiles. The weight of everyone's judgment pressing down. This was better. Simpler.
Real.
Speech, someone called. I wasn't prepared. Didn't matter. I stood with my glass raised. 2 years ago, I said, I thought my life was over. Thought I'd failed at the one thing I was supposed to do. Be a good wife. Have children. Build a family. The women listened. Some of them knew my story. Some didn't. But I learned something. You can't fail at being someone else's fantasy. You can only succeed at being yourself. Murmurs of agreement. So this vineyard, this wine, it's not about proving anything. It's about building something true. Something that won't collapse when you shine light on it. I looked around at these women. Survivors. Builders. People who'd chosen themselves when the world told them that was selfish. To truth, I said. And to whatever grows from it. To truth. We drank. The wine was good. Not perfect, but honest. Like me. Later, alone in my office, I pulled out Kaylin's letter.
Read it one more time.
Then I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I forgave him. Not because he deserved it. Not because his apology was sufficient. But because carrying that anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. I wrote back. Just 1 line. I hope you find peace. I finally have. Mailed it the next morning. Whether he ever read it, I don't know. Don't really care. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about revenge. It's not the ending. It's not even the climax. It's just the moment you stop letting someone else write your story. The real ending comes later. Quieter. In moments like standing in your own vineyard, drinking wine you made, surrounded by people you chose. That's victory. Not the headlines or the prison sentences or the frozen accounts. Just freedom. Simple. Profound. Yours. Sometimes I think about that envelope. The moment Kalen opened it. The chaos that followed. And I don't regret it. Not for a second. Because he took my silence as permission. My patience as weakness. My love as something he could waste. And when I finally spoke, when I finally showed him exactly who I was, he couldn't handle the truth. That's not my failure. It's his. I'm not the woman who was called Barren anymore. I'm not the wife who smiled through humiliation. I'm the woman who turned pain into purpose, who built empires from ashes, who learned that sometimes justice doesn't roar. It whispers. And that whisper echoes forever in every bottle we create, every woman we help, every life we rebuild from devastation. Born of truth. That's our motto. And that's my story. Not about revenge. Not really. About rebirth. About choosing yourself when everyone expects you to choose comfort. About learning that sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is refuse to stay silent. And about remembering that being called barren by a man who created nothing but destruction, that's not an insult. That's a compliment. Thank you for joining Leora's journey from heartbreak to healing. Her story reminds us that our worth isn't defined by others. It's defined by what we build when they tear us down. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think about your own strength, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We share powerful stories of resilience, justice, and transformation every week. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your story might inspire someone who needs to hear it today. And if you know someone rebuilding their life after betrayal, share this with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the first step toward freedom. Until next time, remember, truth always wins, even when it whispers. Stay strong.